All right, folks, listen, I've been doing this podcast for a while. You've been listening to me for a long period of time, and thank you for listening for a while. And I've been having people on that I know that I find interesting, old friends, talented people, cool people. It has continued. This is an old friend of mine. He's been on the show before, but a lot of you new people have never actually heard this gentleman because he came on within the last year or so. So I may have to, ask him some stuff that I already asked him before. This is for the old people. This is things that you already know, but I'm going to ask a couple of things for the new people. Good friend of mine, comedian, actor, radio host, podcaster, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Cooper.
What's up, Steve? Thanks for having me on.
That'll be $5.
Exactly. You can pay the tolls next time I drive you to a gig.
Now, for those of you listening, obviously some of the older people who've been listening, you know who Steve Cooper is. The new people, Cooper and I have known each other since 86. So he knew me when I was 17 years old and he was already 50. And and as he was alluding to, as the kid of all our comic friends, he was one of my older brothers in comedy, and I used to ride with him to gigs on a regular basis. And he had this car, the Pontiac Fiero.
Dude, that Pontiac Fiero was masterful. But I was talking to someone about this today. You'll crack up. I remember I drove you to a gig, and I don't know, it was somewhere in Jersey, and I picked you up at the Speedline station, mm-hmm. and we had to stop by my parents' house for something, and you sat there when we got in the car, and you were waiting for my mom to offer you milk and cookies, but you said I look like I grew up in the Cunningham household.
Yeah, that sounds like me. It was really, really fun. I was waiting for the Fonz to come out. Coop grew up in he's like a father's knows best type. Even the neighborhood, I was waiting for somebody to come skipping down and hand me some apples.
Exactly. Yeah, it was weird. I think about it now, man. Our house, like all our neighbors were there since. I grew up there we moved there when I was 1.5. I'm the youngest, and I ran into a guy the other day, and he lived 2 doors down, and I was thinking, oh my God, I've known this guy because I'm 57. I'm like, I've known this guy for over 55 years. Mm-hmm. And the people in the neighborhood, they never moved. They would come in there, they would stay. The kids would go out. We just run around, go crazy. We come home, in the winter, get our tomato soup and grilled cheese, and they'd send us back out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the housewives, because it was all housewives. Most of it was just women. The fathers were out working, and it was just odd. It was looking back at it, like in the neighborhood I live in now is nice. I live in a condo complex, so it's completely different. Like I never see kids outside. Us, we were terrorizing. And I always say the reason no one ever screwed around with any kids like they do now is because if you did, there'd be 15 kids climbing in the car and beating the shit out of some pervert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like nobody ever got snatched from my neighborhood either, because quite frankly, you would get about 8 feet.
I remember I went to pick you up, and you told me not to pull into your neighborhood because I had that little Pontiac Fiero because you're afraid the car would get stolen or something. So you met me down the street somewhere.
Oh yeah. See, because the thing is, in my neighborhood at the time, and here's the thing, my neighborhood wasn't even like the roughest one. And so I was like, dude, nah. I said, just stop right. Cause people are like, you trying to hide where you live? I'm like, everybody knows what my address is. I just don't want you dead.
Right? A white guy with long hair and a little Pontiac Fiero is looking for some mean streets when he goes in your hood.
It would have been kind of like, yo, man, why John Bon Jovi driving you home, man? He had the earring thing going too, which was hilarious.
Yeah, I know. Don't remind me, please. Don't remind me. I had the earring, and my brother was a jewelry designer, so it made me a little microphone, but it looked like a snow cone. So I look like, we're like, yeah, what are you, an ice cream man? The hell is that? And I go, no, man, it's a microphone. Shut the fuck up.
I tell you right now, if I get in a situation where if I can go back in time, I'm literally going to go back in time. You're going to go, hey, man, that's you at 52. And I'm going, yeah, I just came back to slap you for that microphone. Come here. You just came
But I
back to
thought it
slap
was
you.
cool then, man. I thought it was cool. And it's funny, I was looking, you had posted some pictures on Facebook. I was thinking about, it was both of us about the stupid ass shirts we would wear. I mean, you had that one that looked like it looked like, like a Keith Haring, like an uncool Keith Haring painting. And I had one that had like black with like white big spots. And I'm thinking, what were we thinking? I mean, I think about it when we went on stage, and that was the look then, though. We were, we looked cool to us. And then looking back, I mean, I'm like, holy shit, with a belt, you pull it over and you loop it under. And I'm like, oh my God, what was wrong with this? I mean, I love the 80s, but there's just some ugly stuff going on.
I like the fact that you gave me the benefit of the doubt and said you had one of those. It's like, remember, that's when we started making money, right? So I went to a store and I saw a rack of shirts that I wouldn't wipe my ass with now. And I went, hey, give me like 8 of those. Well, each one uglier than the last one.
I used to go whenever there was sales, because I remember I would go to Macy's or Wanamaker's, and there was a clothing brand called Genera. And Genera was big they had paisley designs and flowers. And if you played your cards right, you could end up getting them for like 45% off. And then if you used your card, another 50% off. So I would walk out with all these shirts, and I thought they were the coolest things. Even when they had the shirts that looked like the American flag, I think it was, I forget who made it. I don't know if it was Tommy Hilfiger or one of those things, or the Structure store. But we would just buy stuff because on stage you wanted to look cool. It's different now. I mean, I see comics just go up wearing jeans and a shitty T-shirt. I mean, back then we wanted to look good because I think it gave us a feeling of we were performers, because that's what we got into it for, to perform people, and you wanted to look good. And you know it as well as I know. You go to the Comedy Works or the Comedy Factory outlet on a weekend, the place is packed. And, and plus back then, I mean, shit, I was trying to get laid all the time anyway. I just wanted to look good. And it was different. We wanted to look good. And back then it did look good. We were both, me and you were both very professional. And I was talking to someone about that the other day. I was talking to Rich Scheidner. I met Rich Scheidner for lunch. And I was saying how, when like me and you, when we started doing comedy, there's a reason we got jobs at the Comedy Factory outlet, because we got, we got guaranteed good stage time. We have to go through the goddamn picking out of the hat, going, you might be 25th in front of, a drunk Fred Novak and someone else. And we got a good number. You get between like 6 and 10, and you got 7 instead of 5. But we also got to see these acts. I remember Tim Allen and Emo and Gilbert and Dice. I mean, I worked for Dice, my Steve the Stud character.
I remember that.
Yeah, and but we got to see these acts. Dom would come in and Dom would just or Bobby Collins. They would just dominate a room. I mean, dominate. Like they do it with their eyes closed. They could do an hour. Like we were at the point where we probably had 7 or 10, but we told everyone we had 25 until we had a shitty set, and then that went back to 7 or 10. And I remember my knee used to shake, and I'd be looking at my clock going, oh my God, when am I going to get the light?
That is a long, and I was just talking to somebody else about Emo. When Emo came to town, it's like you sitting there and you got your little 30 minutes that you think you have, right? And then you watch Emo Phillips, you know what I mean? Or you watch, like you were saying, Chris Rush was another one, would come in, and it was just like, it was like a metronome.
Yeah, and then Chris Rush would always do that Q&A, and he'd smoke in the Q&A. I mean, he'd kill him. He'd kill the crowd in the Q&A. And it was just, I mean, I'm sure, looking back, because we've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I only do it sporadically, but once you've been on stage and you've done it a lot, looking back, I'm sure Chris had bits written out that he would do, but that was one thing about being a comic, even with replies to a heckler line. Even though you've said it a million times, or you did a bit a million times, you always made it look fresh. And that's one thing I learned from watching the acts, I mean, Bobby Collins, so great with the crowd and just his whole, hey, Bobby. But he knew how to work to the crowd, so his responses looked like they were fresh, rolling off the top of his head.
You know what I used to call that? When I talked to like younger comics, because I did I was teaching a comedy class maybe 10 years ago. And I referred to it. They were like, how do you do that? And I said, basically, I said the best way to describe it would be my grandfather used to do card tricks, and he showed me a bunch of card tricks, and people were surprised that someone as young as I was could do these card tricks without messing up. And essentially magicians call it forcing a card, meaning I can make you pick. Well, I can't do it now. It's been a million years, but I could make you pick whatever card I wanted you to pick. You had no choice. You're getting an 8 of diamonds. You know what I mean? And so that's after you've acquired the level of skill, you've mastered the basic skills of being a stand-up comedian, and you're now able to write jokes and you know how to put a set together. I can make you, as an audience member, I can take you anywhere I want to. I can actually get you to ask the question I want you to ask and lead you wherever I want to go, whatever bit I decide to do. And it looks like, and you know what I'm talking about. You've been doing it for 30 plus years too. It looks like you just came up with that stuff. Now, a lot of times you do ad lib, but there's certain bits you're like, nah, I'm going to do the bit with the car now. You know,
Right.
he just kind of shoved them right to the bit with the car. Man, I like the way you came up with that. Yeah. It's not like I wrote that 8 months ago.
I had an awful joke and it just came to me. I forgot. And I had a fake laugh. I would go, what kind of car does a gynecologist drive? And I go, a probe. And I do a fake laugh. And I did that same fake laugh. I go, and it was just, people thought I was just laughing at my own joke, which I wasn't. I wasn't even laughing because after a while I said, this joke sucks. And no one was driving probes anymore anyway. Younger listeners, that was a car. Back when the Fiero was big, there was a probe and there was a Dodge Neon. So there was a bunch of cars that aren't out in the roads. And if you see anyone in those cars, run the other way.
Well, yeah. Well, you actually can run in front of the car because it ain't like they could catch you.
Exactly.
Those cars were horrible. You know, they had a Ford Probe GT. I'm going, wow, but it can go 57.
Exactly. But you know, it's just so funny. It was a different time. You know, I mean, it's funny. Because I was in LA for so long. When I came back, I was in Philly the first time in, and then actually 2 years ago, right before my wedding, or a year and a half, buddy of mine who's now no longer with us, I would meet him in Old City, and we were walking through Old City from a Speedline station. And guys met him at the speed line. And I remember we walked by where the Comedy Factory outlet was on Bank Street. And now I think it's a hostel. It's like a youth hostel. Yeah. I didn't see what's in Chestnut. I don't think the Middle Eastern restaurant is there anymore. It might be. I don't know what's there.
It's like condos or something. It's like apartments or some crap like that.
Because the Middle East is funny. It was owned by Jimmy Tyoun. And I forgot that until 15 years ago when I was in LA, when I was living in Burbank, and I walked into the Monte Carlo Deli and Jay Leno was in there. And I go, oh my God, Jay Leno, how you doing? He goes, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And I said, I used to see you at the Comedy Works. He goes, oh yeah, Jimmy Tyoun's place. And I was like, I can't believe he remembered that so much longer from when he played. It was just amazing.
Places. Well, the thing is, I think that in many cases, we were kind of spoiled in a way because those rooms are actually a lot better than we thought they were. Until, you didn't realize that until you went other places and realized, yeah, those rooms are pretty damn good.
Well, the Comedy Factory outlet, in all honesty, was one of the best rooms because, on a Saturday night, and then, I talked to Clay about this a while back, and he had said how they built it like a theater with the low ceilings. I mean, when you got that room rolling, you blow the roof off that room because the roof wasn't that tall, and it encapsulated the laughs. Comedy Works was a great room, but the laughs would float up. They float up in the ceiling. Like you tell a joke because it's such high ceilings, but in the Comedy Factory outlet, they would get like trapped. And when you had a killer joke and you get that applause break and the killer laughs, it would just force its way like to the stage and you would feel it. I mean, I talk to a lot of musicians on my podcast who talk about the same thing, when a crowd, when there's, they feel it, when the energy just comes forward and it's like a wall. And we both felt that, but it was just a smaller wall. And, I think because we were younger, I don't think we appreciated it as much as we should have because, we were doing so much more than other people were doing at that time. We were out every night. We were performing every night and so many other people weren't. And you can't do that now. I'm not in the comedy scene anymore really, but, when I was in LA, I would go and I would book a show at my friend's Italian restaurant, but I would, it was the same thing. It was like, there'd be like 40 acts every night at these shitty coffee shops and expect the comics to hang out. Like for us, it's like, we don't want to hang out, man. We can drive to the Northeast and do a set and no comic got offended, because there was always crowds. So like open mic, you think about it, our open mics at the outlet, you would get 35, 45 people.
Yeah. Well, the thing that used to crack me up about, because like I said, you kind of got spoiled because, but also it seemed to me after I would go do places outside of this, especially the CFO, it seemed to be infinitely easier the other rooms than the CFO, because I know that they pretty much demanded you to be good, you know, in that room. And you go someplace else, they were just, hey, let's watch a show. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, they would give you a few minutes. You didn't get more than a few seconds at the CFO for them to decide whether or not they liked you or not.
Oh yeah, it was a Philly crowd, and people talk about that, about the Philadelphia type of crowd, and I've noticed that a lot. I notice it in sports, because I am a big sports fan, and I notice Philadelphia fans are just, I'm going to digress here about sports. I'm just going to go off in a second. I always said Carson Wentz was a good quarterback, not a franchise quarterback. Everyone called me a hater. I wasn't. Said the same thing about Aaron Nola pitching. He's not an ace. He's a good pitcher. You're a hater. Philadelphia fans automatically, if you do something good, they canonize you like you're the second coming of the Lord. And it's like, no, man, he had a good season. That's it. But when you're a comic, it's like you got to prove yourself. You could have 40 good sets in a row, and then they'll see you and you have a crappy set, and they'll go, man, I told you the guy wasn't that good. Meanwhile, the athletes are screwing up all the time, Wentz and Nola, but everyone's like, oh no, it's still great. It was just a different world, man.
I to be honest with you, because we didn't know any different, you just automatically think that's the way it's supposed to be, where you got 10 seconds for them to figure out whether they like you or not. Then you go someplace else and they'll give you like 2-3 minutes, which I never needed because I'm used to having to make my point in 10 seconds, so,
Yeah, it's because it's an aggressiveness. You learn that aggressiveness. You have to get it. It's like anything. Like a sprinter when they get out of the box, man. If you don't get out of the box, you're going to lose. But other places, when you get out, you can get out of the box slow because it's like you're running at 880 or 800 meters instead of in Philly, you're running 100 meters. So you got to pop it right away. Else they'll be like, screw this. They'll start heckling you. And then, and I know me and you both were at the door. Hell, if you were getting heckled, I wouldn't want to shut someone up. I didn't want to see you sweat. Just like you probably wouldn't tell someone to be quiet if they're heckling me because you want to see your friends sweat because then you could give them shit later at Nick's roast beef.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was waiting for people to heckle me because I was waiting for that.
Right. Yeah.
I was like,
people ask like, well, how do you handle a heckler? Well, you don't. You tell them to shut the fuck up, or if you're nice to them, or the bottom line is people don't understand. You have the microphone and you're a professional. This is just some idiot who sometimes is probably sitting there because maybe his girlfriend's laughing at you, and he's like, oh, what the hell? Some dude from South Philly. Hey, what's my girlfriend laughing at him for? And they don't understand. There's a reason why we're getting paid. There's a reason why you paid money to see us, and you're not going to win. And that's what funny is when people just. Son, how it is. Some hecklers, they know right off the bat. Some people say it by accident. They heckle and they don't mean it, and then they're cool. Or sometimes they think they're helping you, which you're like, you're not helping me. I'm a professional. But it's the ones that don't shut up that you have to start burying. And as you know, if you're good, the whole crowd's with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, the thing is that you have to be able to, just like anything else. It's like when you're trying to, if you're out there and there's a snake in the grass, you have to be able to figure out, is that a poisonous one?
Exactly.
Does that eat meat? So it's like when they attack, I'm looking, and if the person's kind of funny, I ignore it. Or if the audience can't hear, you can look at people's faces and see whether or not they registered what the person said. You may not even have to react to it, or if you let them heckle just enough till the audience gets annoyed, then you can cut their heads off. And then, and then that's the end of that. But I want to clarify something very, very, very quickly. Earlier on, Cooper said something about in the 80s getting dressed up really well because he wanted to get laid. I want to say right now that in new society, that I want to say right now that I am still a virgin. I was pure back then as well. I have never seen an adult film, and thank you.
Yeah.
So,
man, I can imagine you back then, the porn collection you had, because you knew Big Nick, and people, you don't know, Big Nick was this comic who weighed like 400 pounds, and he'd go to Florida in the winter, like he'd hibernate, and he'd go and he'd sell hubcaps, and he would sell porn. I remember one time, I still remember this, he gave me a porn, and it was a Christmas porn. And when the elf came, he goes, aha, Santa only comes once a year. And I still remember that. And I'm in a Big Nick VHS porno.
I'm a little pissed off right now. And I'll tell you why. And this is the honest to goodness truth. He never gave me one single porn tape. Not one.
He never drove him in the Fiero.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing. You know, okay. For those of you listening, just imagine Shaquille O'Neal trying to slide into one of those Smart for Two cars.
Man, and the funny thing is, we're driving to a show in Reading. It was a Paul Solari gig. I think it was Burn
Mm,
Mountain Inn or one of his rooms or whatever. And we're
mm,
driving, and it was in the winter, and I would get warm quick, so I would open up my window, get a little cold air in, and Nick kept turning the heat on, and I'm thinking, how does a 450-pound man get cold? Like he has all the insulation. Because every time I'd be driving and he'd like, hey, look at that. And I'd turn my head to look at something, on the side of the road. And he'd put his hand on it, he'd turn the heater on. Then I'd be driving like, why am I so goddamn hot? And so then I would sit there and I would grab it and I would turn it off. And I'm like, did you do that? He's like, no, you did it. I said, all right. He did it like 10 times on the way up.
is that how many times you had to refill your gas tank on the way up too?
Yeah, man, it was just, it was funny. Those were the days. There were different days, different times. And it was crazy.
I'm just pissed off that I didn't even know. Now I'll tell you who had the porn. He's no longer with us, but he had a porn collection that I literally laughed at. Doc.
Doc passed away?
Yeah, a few years ago.
I didn't know that. I didn't know because Doc was a lawyer. That's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And Doc was a pretty dark guy. Doc Tari. He played the guitar. And
Yeah.
I used to drink with Doc, and he could slug him down. He could drink some beer. And I never knew he was a big porn. I thought you were going to say Fred Novak, because we know Novak. I mean, Novak would look at porn magazines on the bus. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Because Doc but the thing is like it was almost like he collected these weird things because they were weird things.
Right.
And I don't even know if he even took care of himself watching it. He's like those guys that collect cars but never drive them.
Right.
He was one of those dudes, and I'm going, do you even watch these things? And he was the one that introduced me to this like a Rudy Ray Moore, like super dirty comedy tapes and stuff like that. And I hung out with that man so much. We went to New York so many times, and it was funny how many of you guys I actually rode with. Well, then I was a kid at the time, but it was just kind of a funny thing. Now, I want to find this out because we both were in LA, and what were the years you were actually in Los Angeles?
Let's see. I moved back 4 years ago. Let me think. I really don't know, Steve. I know I probably moved to LA 19 years ago. So we're looking maybe 2002, maybe 2001.
Oh, I was long gone when you got there.
Yeah, I moved there later. I lived in North Jersey for a little bit. And I don't know when I moved out there. Because I also, before I lived in LA, I lived in San Diego for 6 or 7 years. I think you were in LA when I was in San Diego. And then I moved up.
I didn't even know you were on the West Coast at the time.
Yeah, well, it was different then. It wasn't like we didn't have cell phones. You couldn't keep in touch with people. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have anything. So you wouldn't know. And some people you keep in touch with, and you'd have their number, and then you would find out. And then when we got email, you go, oh, you find it. Like I found John Matta was in LA, or you got his number, or stuff like that. So it was interesting.
What did you go to San Diego for, though?
You know what? I thought it'd be good. I was married, my first marriage. And I don't know. I just thought it'd be a cool place to write. And it was just different. And it was cool. And I was getting out of comedy at the time. I was just tired because I've been on the road a lot. And I just went down. It was a different lifestyle. You grow up in Cherry Hill your whole life. And then, you go to college in New Jersey. And then, you live outside New York, but you're in New Jersey. And you spend your whole life in New Jersey, and even though you're traveling, doing comedy all over the country, mostly for me, the East Coast and the Midwest, you just wanted to break, and I talk to people about that a lot. Sometimes you just wanted to break because, comedy was so weird, and it was, it wasn't like there was as many gigs too. It was drying up a little bit, and they weren't paying, and because we went through the tail end of the boom, and you could work every night and get paid, but then all of a sudden, all these comics started doing it, and you got crappy bookers who would pay someone hardly any money to headline, and it just started fucking up comedy. And so, I just was tired of it. I wasn't really having fun on stage. I used to love getting on stage, and I was just like, I remember I was doing the Funny Farm in Youngstown, Ohio, and I when I got on stage, I noticed I put myself in autopilot. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to have a job where I'm in autopilot. That's like, I might as well be an accountant making a lot more money with benefits than, if I'm going to be in a, it used to be you'd be in a zone, but then when you go from the zone, when you get in that zone on a good set to autopilot, it just wasn't really fun anymore because I always mixed my setup to keep it fresh. I could never understand that some people would just want to do the same set all the time. And I'm like, I work with comics, I'm like, holy shit, I haven't seen you for 20 years. You're still doing the same set. And it was just one of those things. I got burnt, I got burnt. And I still perform every once in a while, and when I do it, this guy, Dave Evans, had me headline his room before the pandemic. And I was like, I don't think I can do 45 minutes. I could, but I don't practice anymore. And I did it, had a good set. And you get off and you're like, oh yeah, man, I should do this more. But I'm like, no, I don't want to go to Doylestown for $50 on a Friday or Saturday. I'd rather just sit at home. It's like, I'm not going to go to open mics because I don't need the bullshit. And so I was burnt. And now when I do it every once in a while, I have fun. People are like, man, you're funny. I go, well, I was a working stand-up comic for years. And it's fun at the time, but I go, it could be a hobby, but I do my hobby is my podcast. And that's what I pay my attention to.
The funny thing about it is once you get to a certain skill level, I found that the default number that you can just do in your sleep is about 30 minutes.
Right.
Like I haven't done stand up in a while. I could walk on stage right now without looking at any jokes, just not even thinking about it, and do 30 solid minutes.
See, for me, I can't. I probably can, but I give myself a mental block. I always go up with notes now because I forget shit. I keep them behind me. I don't have a notebook. But for me, I can't. I can, but I don't give myself the confidence. And I think I work with that fear. I'm always worried I'm going to forget my spot. But then I think, wow, I can do this bit. The bits, of course, I can't do bits about me having hair anymore. But, but it's just, that's good. You can do that. And a lot of people can. I probably can, but I don't train myself to do that. I'd rather leave it up in the air and,
dude, after 30 years, trust me, you could walk on stage and you can do an effective 30 minutes.
I didn't do stand up for like 10 years. I did it and I didn't do it and I did it sporadically. I haven't done more than in the last 20 years, the most sets I've probably done in a week were like 10-minute sets on like 1 week in LA 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was let me ask you this. Cause you, like I said, I left Los Angeles in like 99, 2000 and haven't gone back yet. You came in like right after I left. When I left, I remember I was doing coffee houses, Laugh Factory and all these other kind of places, but it just didn't feel like stand up. It felt like whenever you did stand up, they didn't really care about the performance per se. They kind of were like, we want to see if you're funny. Okay, we know you're funny. Do you fit into a slot we already have cut already? Like, are you the this guy or the that lady or the this guy? And I saw them picking people that didn't necessarily get laughs, but they fit. And they were funny, but they weren't comedians. But they fit into a peg, to a pre-cut hole, and it was easy. And I couldn't get mad at them because if I'm the person picking the comic, I'm trying to protect my job. If I make too many mistakes, I'm the hell out of there. And I was like, I just want to do comedy, man, in whatever form. And as the technology started to catch up, I realized I could do it from wherever the hell I want to.
Right. Yeah. Funny. I really didn't do stand up when I got to LA in the beginning. I did down the road, but I was working in a restaurant. I optioned a screenplay and I got a few freelance writing gigs, but I wasn't really concentrating on stand up because I didn't feel like starting over because that's what happens. We didn't have the credits. And unfortunately, Philadelphia comics didn't get the heat that Boston and New York comics did. New York, understandable because New York, it's New York. Boston, no, Boston was great comics, but Philly had great comics. And, you look at it like, look at McKay. McKay didn't do stand-up, and now McKay is one of the biggest directors, writers around. He did stand-up with us, but he was like, I don't want to do this out here because it's a pain. And I talk to people about that all the time. They're hanging out. And then you're right. They pick someone else that they don't look the part, and then so that happens. But that's the thing about Hollywood, they're all about a product. They want they all think what the latest trend is. Like this happened a few years ago with sitcoms. They didn't want to use any of the great writers like, Steve Skrovan and Lou Schneider and all those guys who won Emmys for Everyone Loves Raymond. It was like they didn't want these older writers. They wanted to bring in all these young, hip writers through the sitcoms, and they did that, and all the sitcoms sucked. And they said, wait. So these older guys, they know what they're doing. And that's in Hollywood. They said, we want someone new, because then, they can get the network, looking at them. But it didn't work a lot of times.
I always thought that the best writing rooms had a combination of new people and old people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what I mean? That is true, because if they're older, and and you and I both know this when we did comedy, people were very quick to mentor us. And and that's, if you weren't a dick, I'm just sure there's certain people who the comics didn't want to, like Grover and those guys didn't want to mentor, but it was a matter of, that's why it works, because, if the younger people listen and the older people mentor, you get a great product and you work together. When I worked for a website where I wrote jokes, I wrote 25 jokes a day. And the guy who was me and another guy who was Jeff Martyr, who did, Tonight Show. He got couched the first time when he was 21. I watched an old Arsenio tape of his. He had an HBO special, hosted a talk show with Ringo on the Playboy channel. And me and Jeff worked a lot because I looked up to him. And eventually he said, your jokes are better than mine. I'm going to concentrate on the business aspect now. It's all yours. Take over creative. And it was because he mentored me, but I learned, and I wanted, because I admired his act. And I think that's what happens when you get someone who is younger and admires someone and is not a dick, who's not like knows everything. They learn. And then eventually the older person sits there and goes, okay, I can grow into a different position now because you know what you're doing.
It's well, one of the things, it's just like in a relationship, if you're in a relationship when you love her, or if you're, or love him or whatever, and they can't accept it because of something about them, the nicer you are to them,
Yeah.
I you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I mentor some younger podcasters, and they're like, and they always go, God, you get such great musical guests. I go, well, yeah, because I've been doing it 10 years. And they expect a guest. Like, I want to get that guest. Can you help me out? I'm like, we've done like 100 episodes, dude. And then you sit there and you listen to their episode when they get a nice sized guest, and they flub it. They're shitting themselves, And so I'm like, no, me and Judy Gold talked about this 2 weeks ago on my podcast. There's a reason why you get your chops, because when you're ready, you can deliver. And that's what a lot of people don't get. You have to be ready. And, if it's a podcast, if you've done 50 episodes, you're not ready. Shit. I've done 865 episodes of my podcast, and like 30 I used to do for internet radio. You get good at it. It's like stand-up. You get good at it. But you're not going to become a star overnight. But we both also know from doing stand-up, after like 6 months, we both thought we were the shit. After we had that first set at CFO, we're like, oh yeah, man, I can feature when we couldn't even do 5, but you get that ego, like, yeah. And then all of a sudden you go up the next night, you fall flat on your ass, and you go, hey, you know what? Maybe I got a little too cocky. But that was the youth of us.
Yeah, I just told somebody the other day, I think it was either on the show or not, I can't remember, but I remember I did that first set at the Comedy Works, went really well. I'm not even kidding about this. I'm kind of kidding, but I remember going home and I was like, yeah, I killed for 4.5 minutes. I'm 17. I should have my sitcom by Thursday.
We all thought that, like, oh yeah, man, they're going to ask me a headline, baby. I'm coming in and headlining. And then all of a sudden you go up the next night and you go, you can't get a laugh, and you're like, you walk away with your towel on your legs, and you're like, oh, I guess I won't be headlining.
The worst part about the first Bomola is I'm glad it happened like the second time and not the 15th or 20th time, so you can really build your ego up. You know what I mean?
And the thing is, as you work, and everyone knows, you do have a crappy set. And the thing is, as long as you're doing good 90% of the time, be happy. But if it starts going to be, you're doing good 60% of the time, you shouldn't be in the business because
I
you're not funny. It's like, as I always said, it's like the Ice House in Pasadena.
oh yeah,
Was you go on that stage? If you go on that stage in a packed house and you can't rock it for 7 minutes, get out of the business because a person who makes no sense could go up there and just sing to the ceiling and they would destroy.
yeah, it's pretty easy. It was like I remember it was at the Ice House, and I'm looking out and I'm going, this is the easiest. I mean,
Oh, yeah, it was so easy.
It's
It was
like, good God, man.
there, and it's funny because I didn't really know people, and I wouldn't do a bringers. And there was this comedy teacher, and she would put people up. She always put me up first, and I'd laugh because I didn't want to say, "Well, you know what, your student is not going to be able to follow me," and I would just go and destroy. And the student would go up and eat shit, and I'd be like, "Hey," and then I'm like, the student after them is going to eat shit too. You should put me third, but I understood why. She wanted the room to get energy and get going, but it was just funny. That room was so easy.
Yeah, that always cracked me up about that. It was like, because I don't. You see, like the Laugh Factory was pretty damn easy as well.
Never played there.
It was like it was like a shade. It was roughly the same level of easy that the Ice House is. It still is, from what I understand. I mean, and mainly because a lot of the comics there are pretty damn good.
And they got the names. People know they're going to see. They know they can see Chappelle pop in or Chris Rock or anybody. All those people. They know there's a chance. Saget's always there, so they know they're there to laugh, and that's why they're there. And they're tourists, and they are eating the shit up. That this is what LA is. So they go in and they don't see the other side when you're doing a crappy coffee house in Koreatown in front of like 4 homeless people and 5 other comics who all have their faces in their notebook and think they're funnier than you, even though they've never made a dime doing comedy. I used to laugh at that on Facebook. I got all these comedy groups because someone's like, "Oh, I hate hobby comics," and I was like, "Hey, I'm a hobby comic. You know what? I just went back east and did 5 shows and made more money than you'll make in 2 years." Mm-hmm. So who's making the hobby? You're the hobby comic because you perform every night. They got, as they say, "We're on the grind. Love my job." I go, "Well, you must love driving Uber because that's what you fucking do."
The thing about it is it's almost like a Clark Kent Superman type of thing. In certain places when you go there, because you've been doing it at this time like 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you're still young, and they don't realize that people. I remember somebody giving. It was older than me at the time. I was like 23, 24. He was like 32 or something like that. Yeah, kid. He's giving me advice now as a professional for a decade at this point. I'm listening to this guy, and he's saying and I'm sitting there going, does he just not know what he's talking about? Or is he trying to sabotage me? Because his advice, I forgot what it was, but me and the guy that was with at the time, we were hanging around, another comic, I forgot his name, and he was a pro from Boston or something like that. And we're professionals. We had paid. I mean, when you've paid bills with jokes,
right?
You know what I'm saying? It's a different thing than somebody else. So he's yeah, kid, I've been doing it a year.
Oh yeah, and I got that when I first started my podcast. Some guys are like, "Well, you should do more political stuff," because it was an internet radio and I was getting a shitload of listeners. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's not my gig, man. I talk to performers, and I talk to actors. And if I wanted a political radio show, I would say, "This is Steve Cooper of politics," but I don't want that. But everyone always can give you advice when they don't know what the hell it's about. They sit there, they go, "Oh yeah, do this," and it's like, dude, just don't tell me what to do. You do yours, you do mine, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, let's be honest. Aren't there enough, you know what I mean, in political shows out there as it is?
Yeah, and they're all shows. That's what it is. They're shows.
I don't need that crap. It's like I purposely stay away. I just enough. You know what I mean?
I don't personally think political because an argument always happens, and it's so funny. This one idiot, I made a joke. When coronavirus started, I put it on Facebook. I said, "It's unbelievable that people believe in Bigfoot more than they believe. Some people believe in Bigfoot more than they believe in coronavirus." All it was a joke. Let arguments start. And this one guy who's a comic, who's an idiot, like a meth head, ex-con. I actually put him on a few of my shows out there when I was booking my friend's restaurant and a bar. He starts going off and on another friend, he's arguing with. I think he started arguing with Marty Ullman. Marty Ullman's like the nicest guy. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, it was a fucking joke. And so I unfriended the guy. So then he sends me a message, hey, I put some video to watch. And I'm like, and he's like, you and all your Hollywood friends. And I'm like, well, actually, I don't live in Hollywood. And, I do know a lot of people in Hollywood. They're my friends, but I don't live in Hollywood. And he's like, good luck, comrades. I'm like, whatever. 5 months later, he sends me a friend request. I said, what are you joking me? Like, I'm going to accept it, dude? I mean, what is wrong with you? It's like, it's delusion. And it's over politics, man. And it's like, it's Facebook. Facebook should be fun, post, you promote your show. I promote my show. You promote stupid shit like you eat ketchup on crab cakes, which is stupid. But besides that, you try to, you don't want to
dare you,
dude, come on, crab, you go into Maryland, you go to Phillips or go to any place and you ask for ketchup with crab cakes and they'll throw your ass into the Chesapeake Bay.
I got news for you, buddy. When I lived in San Francisco, yeah, that's right. Fisherman's Wharf, damn it. I slapped ketchup on there and they loved it.
No, they didn't.
Okay, they looked at me funny. I'll be honest with you.
It's like, by the way, Easter on, it's funny. I went to a concert one night at TLA, and me and my buddy, after we had a few cocktails, we got cheesesteaks at Jim's. This is when I first moved back. I had not been at Jim's in whatever years. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't know they didn't took cash. Thank God I had cash on me. And this guy I'm good friends with, I go to concerts with all the time, and he slaps mustard on his cheesesteak. I'm like, what the? I mean, I put ketchup on my cheesesteak, but I was like, I've never seen anyone in my whole life. I've never seen someone put mustard on their cheesesteak. And I was a little disgusted with him. I was a little pissed at him. I'm like, and he's lived here the whole time in my area. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, no one puts some mustard on a cheesesteak. That's sacrilege.
Yeah, that's got to stop. Did you get the Philly taco?
Is that the one where they wrap the pizza?
Yeah.
That's just a waste. Seriously, if you don't know, it's where you get a cheesesteak and you wrap it in pizza. Why? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, it doesn't even sound appealing. It's like, eat your pizza and eat a cheesesteak. I can't eat that much food anyway.
The funny thing about it is if somebody handed me that, I would unroll that thing so fast.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's sacrilege. It's like, I fold my piece of pizza, but I don't want a cheesesteak in the middle of it.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there and it's one of those things where you're going, did someone who lived someplace else and then moved to Philadelphia come up with that to feed tourists that crap? Because what the hell does pizza have to do? They have pizza in Philadelphia, but it's not,
I've had a cheesesteak pizza though, which isn't actually bad.
That's a grinder and that's good stuff. That's pizza sauce and cheese on top of the cheesesteak and they throw it in the oven.
A pizza that has peppers, even though the Philly cheesesteak doesn't get peppers.
The Philly cheesesteak pizza. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Good. That's good. But I can't see combining the two. It's like, I can't see wrapping them. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it's like that joke you were doing with Oprah. She loves bread. She really loves bread.
Yeah. Man, I milked the shit out of that thing.
yeah. That's just, but the thing is, it's like, I had to cut down on the damn bread, man. I can't. You know what I mean? I just can't do it.
It's all sensible eating. That's all it is, man.
Now, speaking of which, Mr. Catheter up the leg. I gotta ask you about this, because what the hell?
Okay, I'll give you an update. 10 years ago, I had congestive heart failure. Okay, but then I took my meds. My heart was really weak. I got back to good. Well, then when I moved back here, my insurance was still in LA. I hadn't started my job here, and so I had my buddy picking up my pills in LA. My blood thinner and my other heart thing, and mailing it to me. And I was like, oh, I'm healthy. So I was only taking half. Well, I didn't know that, I have something called AFib. They said it, but they really ignored it in LA. It's where my heart will get stuck at a certain rate. When I went to the hospital, I went to the cardiologist at Deborah. I haven't been to the doctor for a while. And my heart rate was at 170. And they kept me in the hospital for 8 days. And what happened was, because my heart was always going into AFib or staying in there for like a few hours, it was like me running a marathon. So it weakened my heart. There's something called an injection rate that should be 55 to 70%. I'm usually at 62, 64%. I was down to 24%. Okay. I'm looking back. I'm lucky that I just wasn't walking down the street and had a cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. So when I got out, they did do a cardiac catheter where they go through your wrist and my arteries are completely clear. So they had to do an ablation 2 years ago. And that's where they go up through the inside of your thigh on your right thigh. They come up and they go across your chest and go to your heart and burn scar tissue because your heart's like an electrical system. So they're basically putting speed bumps on it. So in case your heart goes, it'll slow down. Well, unfortunately for that kind of procedure, only about 60% take. And I was one of the 40% that it didn't take the first time. So even though I wasn't really getting the AFib as much, I think they gave me, it's weird, it's how the way science is, they put something on me called a halter. It looks like a thing of dental floss, and you stick it to your upper left side, and there's no wires, and it transmits this signal, and you keep it on for like a week. And I had 2% of AFib. So they said, you know what, just get another ablation. So I got her a few weeks ago, went on a Monday, and they keep you overnight because you have to lay on your back for 5 hours because you have a stitch. Was out the next day. By Wednesday, everything was fine. I had no pain. You get a little bit of pain, but I was wondering why my throat was hurting, and I forgot they put one of those breathing tubes in you. So it's just, but it's one of those things as you get older. I mean, I've had that, and I've had before that cardioversions is where they put you under for like a minute and they shock your heart back into rhythm. I've had in the last 2 years, I've had like 5 or 6 of them. 2 ablations. I had to wear a man bra with a pocket defibrillator when I first got out of the hospital. You just learn to deal with it, man. What else are you going to do? You can't be afraid. I told my wife, I said, here's the deal. I said, there's like a 2% chance I would die on the last thing. I said, listen, here's the deal. If I die, I already wrote a contract to my friends. I said, first, next guy you date, I want him to have hair. You've been with me for 10 years. I'm bald. I want you to have a guy with hair so you can run your hands through his hair. And I said, also, you're a beautiful woman and you look much younger than you are. My wife's 55. People think she's 35. I said, you can only date someone. The least you can go is 15-year youngers. Nothing less. Once it's 15-year youngers, you can't date. I told my friends, keep an eye on her because, count on you guys. So. She can only date a guy 15 years younger at the most, and he has to have hair if I die.
Interesting. So what's her address?
Yeah. You're bald, dude. Come on, you're bald.
I'm not. I got my head. I got my hair.
You're like 6 years younger than me. Okay. That's cool.
I can't. The thing about it is, and my uncles, they've passed, but they gave me the hardest time because they all lost their hair early. And I have a full head of hair at 52 with no signs of losing it.
You look better bald.
I love being bald. I love it, bro.
Back then, and people, if you don't know, if you see pictures of Steve back in the day, and he'll deny it, but he had the full-on Gary Coleman hairdo. I don't care what you say. You had that hairdo back in fucking 88. And,
I'm going to say right now that Cooper's a damn liar.
Yeah, I had a Dave Coulier haircut, so I can't say much more.
No, you had the Bon Jovi drummer hair.
Yeah. It wasn't a mullet. I tell people it wasn't a mullet. It was feathered with gel.
Yeah, it's a mullet with gel in it. Yeah, for anybody. But other than that, everything, the health things, you pretty good, and you feel.
Yeah, my cholesterol's a little high, but as my doctor said, your arteries are clear, so we'll keep an eye on it, but just you get through this. So, as I said, I may have going to AFib. It takes 70 or 80 days to heal. That I can get off one med. I got to stay on a blood thinner. And the funny is the blood thinner, makes your blood thin. And when I was at the hospital the first time for 8 days, somehow my IV came out. And because I'm on a blood thinner, my blood's fucking spurting everywhere. I felt like Dexter shooting up on my rope. And I don't know what to do. I'm standing up, and it was just funny. I was like looking back. It's like the poor nurse came in, there's blood all over the floor. There's blood all over. I look like, I was trying to kill someone. But I'm good. I'm in good health. I can't complain. I just actually, I've been the last 3 days, I started going back to the gym, and I'm doing 30 minutes a day on the treadmill.
Dude, you know what I did? Because you go to the gym or whatever, and it's like you keep making excuses. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just broke down and bought a a total gym.
Yeah, I would do that, but it's funny. Joanne, my wife, she goes to the gym 2 days a week. She goes to a trainer 2 days a week. So, I felt like now I'm like, you know what? I told her I'd do it. And I said, you know what? I'll go. And I'm just going to do cardio. And then maybe I'll get into weights. But the one, when I first was in the hospital, the one medicine they put me on, put on like 15 pounds. I've been, I've been the same weight since we were doing comedy. I mean, I've been doing the same weight up to 2 years ago. I put on 15 or 20 pounds. And it goes in my gut and it goes into what I call Zoom face. When you do Zoom, you look in the camera, you notice you get a little bit of a chin hanging down. And so I said, I'm going to start doing it. And it was good. I mean, I hate it. I hate the gym. I put a book on tape and I just do 30 minutes on the treadmill and hopefully it'll work. I'll keep doing it.
Man, what is it? I keep seeing pictures of food, like healthy. So I'm assuming Joanne eats healthy.
Well, I cook. I cook most of the time.
You cook?
Yeah, I mean, she loves to cook, but I cook. And it's funny, though, she said the other night she cooked, and she said, yeah, if you keep going to the gym, I'll start cooking. Well, the problem is I like cooking. So I said, don't tell me that. I'll stop going to the fucking gym. My whole joke is I do it, eat healthy and cheap. I wrote a cookbook 10 years ago called Stop the Salt after I had congestive heart failure. And it's so funny because you can find it on Amazon, Stop the Salt by Steve Cooper. And I probably sell one book every 2 months because I get in my bank account like $1.43 residual. Like, oh, I sold a book. Holy crap. One day I got like $6. Three people bought my book. But I learned that, it's so easy we have an attraction to fast food because it's good. And it's so easy to cook. So I'll put a picture up. I'll say, like I'll go get fish and then I'll get vegetables. And so the whole meal will cost $6 to make. So I put, I would say stay at home, cheap and easy stay at home meal. And I just do it because I want people to eat well. And, like, as as a comic, for so long we ate so crappy because you're on the road and you're eating at the comedy club. And then some clubs like, well, you can just have off the appetizer menu. So you're living on, wings and skins and diner food and fried food and, Taco Bell. And so I just, I like to cook and post it just so if I can get one person to eat healthier. And believe me, I'll eat, I'll eat crap food. I'm telling you, I'm tempted every Monday tempted every Monday to go to a Philly pretzel company because they have dollar pretzel dogs and those things are amazing. And I could wolf them down, but I go, I can't. And every Monday through Friday, Arby's 2 to 5, they have dollar sliders. They're good. They're good sliders. And I would love to go every day, but I can't because it's not just for me. As I said, I'm married now and I have to look out for my health for her. And I always think also if I died, all these new podcasters would be getting the good guests I had to work my ass off to get.
That's what I was like. That's what I was like. You cook. I swear I was picturing you ordering crap. Not even if it was healthy crap. I was like, I didn't,
and I cook,
for some reason I didn't picture.
Man. I love the food shop. And the thing is, I love food shopping. To me, it's therapeutic. Like if I go with Joanne food shopping, it's not, I don't like it because I'm set. I know my aisles at Aldi. I know my aisles at ShopRite. I know Sprouts. Sprouts is a store that was in LA. I used to go to one in Burbank all the time. Well, 2 Sprouts are open. One's in South Philly. One's right around the corner from me in Marlton, New Jersey. I'm there all the time. I'm fascinated. They have like 15 types of apples. I thought there was like 4 types of apples. I'm like, holy shit. And so I love it. I love shopping. I make a menu and I sit there and, we do eat out, and we enjoy that. And we'll make pizza sometimes, Aldi is a good frozen pizza, like a DiGiorno pizza, but it's like $2.65 and it's just as good. And I like to get a good deal.
It's really weird how people. It's like there are certain places that I like to go shopping. If I go to a place and the vegetables look good, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
if I see that, I'm like, okay, here we go.
Well,
You know what I mean?
you lived in LA when you used to go to like John's. John's was like the crappy shop, right? And you go in, the vegetables
Mhm.
just look like shit. You'd be like, what the hell? They're cheap. And there's a reason why they're cheap. You know, it's like there's a watermelon with a bite out of it. And I'm not gonna buy that. You know, there's like a plum with the core on the outside. I'm not gonna buy that.
You ever bite the apple and the whole inside's brown?
Oh yeah, oh god. Well, that happens with avocados, man. You sit there and they feel so great, and then we just had avocado tonight, and it felt good, and I opened up and there's like this big brown spot. I'm like, what the hell, man? It's like it snuck in.
It just pisses. That's one of the things that, my one of my uncles used to go, I had my mouth ready for that. You sit there and you're ready to eat this thing, and you're going, man, I'm going to get in the kitchen, I'm going to get the knife out, I'm going to take the pit out, I'm going to be in there, and
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's gross. Or like if you eat something that you overcooked, like you're all excited and you bite into it and you're like, this shit's dry. That's why I eat chicken thighs, not chicken breasts, because chicken thighs are always moist. Chicken breasts can get dry on you sometimes, but if you stuff it, it works. But I'm a chicken thigh guy because it's always moist.
I'm looking at the computer right now, and I'm looking at Cooper Talk, episode 865, as you said. 865 interviews. They're all interviews, right?
All interviews.
865.
Yep, and all with as I said, lately I've switched to music. I'm going back to actors. But in the last 6 months, I've had 6 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think I was doing a Zoom interview with Steven Van Zandt from Springsteen, The Sopranos, and that was the first time I was a little bit nervous because you pop in on Zoom and there's little Stevie with his headband on. He's sitting there and he's got like this background, and his house looks like a Tim Burton movie, like this black and white check shit. And in the middle of the interview, and I never edited it, but I had to, because in the middle of the interview, his dog started barking. He goes, hold on, I'm so sorry. And he had to go and tell his dog to shut up. And so, yeah, I've gotten lucky. And it's not lucky. I've gotten really good guests, and I got into the music genre somewhat. And then I've always liked character actors, and I sit there. And I do comedians occasionally. I just had Wendy Liebman on for, I think it was Wendy's 4th time on the show, and she's become friends with my wife, and I became friends with her, and she's just wonderful. And I had Judy Gold on, and it's funny, in the middle of the interview, Judy Gold was talking about it. She's like, yeah, you know how you got, us people, us Jewish people. And I'm like, I'm not Jewish, Judy. And she's like, started yelling, yeah, what do you mean you're not Jewish? Oh, yeah. And it was the funniest thing. She's like freaking out because I'm not Jewish. And so I get the comedians every once in a while. I just interviewed the guy from Squeeze, which is a band I love. I've been, I've sent out letters. I used to get upset if something didn't get back to me, but then I said, look how many people there are to interview. And then if I see someone else get a guest and I don't, I used to get upset, but I'm like, you know what? It's not my deal, and I help a lot of younger podcasters get guests, for musicians and stuff, if they're good. And, they're always like, some of them are like, well, we can help you out. I said, well, you know what? I got the guest first. That's all that counts. I don't care. Like Rich Scheidner always says this, like when Robin Williams stole one of Rich's jokes. He wanted to write him a check, and Rich is like, nah, don't worry. I already did it on Letterman. Yeah, it's done. It's out there. Whatever you do, I don't give a shit. It's done. I've done it. I can't. He's like, I can't do it again. So whatever. And that's how I feel, when I help people with guests. I had them already. And you know what? And that's not to be arrogant, but I know their interview's not going to be as good as mine because I've been doing it for so long. It's like you sitting there, they may have a good set, a good interview, but they're not going to be consistent. And that's why I've gotten a good guest, because a lot of times I shoot the shit with a guest after we turn the recorder off, and I never prepare any questions. Like we're just shooting the shit. And that's what I do when they come on. I know about their careers. We know each other, but I know about these people's careers because I do a little bit of research, but I don't write any questions out because why? I'm not an interviewer. Now that's the difference. Like it's the old thing, what was it? Stand-up comics tell jokes, comedians make people, I don't know, whatever, but it's like, we're hosts, man. We're not interviewers. Anyone can be an interviewer. All you have to do is research and just ask questions in a, my goal was, and I've succeeded at it, is to make it sound like a conversation, just like we said in the beginning about comedy. When you make it sound like it's coming off your head, even though it isn't. There's some people I know I'm going to ask certain questions, but I don't write it down. It's just like comedy. You know we're going to do certain bits, and you're going to do it, but you're not like prepared for it.
I specifically and purposely, I go back and I look at, I usually, I'll listen to 2 or 3 of their interviews, even if they're longer ones, beforehand. And I usually hear, I can tell because people have the prepared questions, or what they'll do is they won't let the guest talk.
Exactly.
The guest will be saying something that just, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I notice when they get the nervous energy, they'll do the And for me, I don't listen to any other interviews of the guests because I don't want to know what they're asking. But the cool thing now for me is I never listen to my show because I don't edit it. When I do edit it, I send it to a guy in LA. But what's cool for me now is I'm getting interviews that I do in the Hamilton Gazette, which is Hamilton's a town 30 miles from Atlantic City. The newspaper, the Gazette, has about 15,000 circulation plus an online presence. And what I do, like I did the Steven Van Zandt interview for that, I have to go back and listen and I write the questions out. But then I share a byline. They have someone transcribe the answers and edit it, whatever. And I'm like, it's perfect. So I actually started listening to myself, and I don't like to, but I just like it that way. Because then you go, okay, now when I sit there, I go, well, as I'm going through, I'm more conscious, like how, I have to choose 6 good questions that I already asked. So it's cool.
It's an interesting thing because I like the last couple of things when I would listen to, like I said, listen to the last couple of things they do. I just want to make sure because I want to hear what they keep getting asked 15 times in a row, and and a lot of times when I'll have somebody on, they're like, "No one ever asked me that." Oh, that's a good question. Because I don't want to say the same stuff. But then I realized if we just talk like 2 human beings, it's going to sound like 2 human beings talking. I don't want to sit there. So I understand in 1965, you started your band.
And then people always sit there and ask those questions, and then they sometimes they make the mistake of doing their research off Wikipedia, which is only 80% thing, and they'll go, so I heard that you used to play football as a kid. No, I never did. I was a little scrawny kid. Oh, and then it throws them for a loop. That's why you can't over research and you can't do any of that. You want to do your research. You want to be prepared because that's what we are doing. We're doing an interview. And also what we forget is, well, we don't, because me and you don't, because we've been doing this for a while. It's our show. That's why you can't get intimidated by your guests. I had Ed Asner come into the studio. Ed Asner sitting there. He comes in, and as he's coming in the studio, I just got done interviewing Sharon Lawrence. And she walks out there talking, and Ed's like, I love that Sharon Lawrence. What microphone did she talk on? I said, this one. And he kisses a microphone, and I'm going, holy shit, this is some whacked-ass dude. But I had to hold the fort down. It's Ed Asner. He's grumpy, nicest guy, but he's grumpy, and you're like, the whole time I'm interviewing, I'm like, that's Ed Asner, and Rich Man, Poor Man, Lou Grant, Mary Tyler Moore, all that shit. Roots. He was in Roots. He won an Emmy for Roots. And it's just, so that's you get used to it. And you do that. That comes in time.
She said Stevie Van Zandt got to you. Ed Asner obviously got to you. Who else, They
didn't get to me. I was a little bit nervous when they sat down. When I got Stevie, because I'm such a fan of Springsteen. They didn't get to me. No guest has gotten to me.
Well, you know what I meant. I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah, no one, everyone's just been so nice. And I was telling someone that the other day. Of all these interviews, there hasn't been one jerk. And I'm not just saying that. There was one jerk years ago when I started. It was doing internet radio. And he was a comic from Canada, and he's a nobody. And he was sort of like trying to be funny and smug. And I was just like, and I was new. And now everybody just like cut him off. Like I've done that in interviews where if someone's just an idiot, I just say, okay, well, thanks. But back then when I was in the studio, the show had to go for an hour. But now I'm just like, okay, thanks. It was great talking to you. I don't give a shit. Give me respect. I'm taking my time to interview you. And the worst is like when it's someone who's not even that big. That's what hurts when you get turned down by someone who's not that big. When you sit there and you just had, I remember I had a drummer from Blondie, the drummer from the Talking Heads, a drummer from the Pretenders, all members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And some person who had one hit isn't even getting back to me. And I'm like, whatever, dude. That's why your career's in the shitter.
That was always that I just get a kick out. I had which was hilarious. I had it's happened to me like I think in the past 8 years, I think 2, maybe 3 times, where somebody would commit to the show, right? And like I said, like you said before, we learned a long time ago, be professional.
Yep.
Be where you said you were going to be. Do what you said you were going to do. Treat people with respect. That's the default position. So I confirmed with this person early, in the middle, and the day before, right? And then the day of, and they just ghosted me.
That's the worst. And I've been there, and I've also sat there, been waiting on Zoom, waiting for them to get in the room, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to ghost me. And I'm like, I just set up the studio, and I'm like, okay, I'll give them 10 minutes. It happened to someone a few weeks ago, and he just forgot, and I sent him a message, and I'm like, dude, I guess you may have forgot. We have to reschedule. He goes, oh my God. He goes, I never forget. And he ended up saying, can we do it now? I'll be on. I said, okay, give me 10 minutes. And it was cool. But I don't get that. I also don't get, I had an actor on a TV show. I really like this TV show. And he said he'd do my show. This was a few months ago. And he says, yeah, I definitely sounds good. And I interviewed some of his friends. And then he just, after the interviews, after the messages on Facebook after that, he was just ghosting me. What people don't know is we see when you get the message, because there's a little face pops up, your profile shows. So we know you already saw the message. Hey, I've had people say, nah, I don't want to do it. I'm fine with that. But at least give me especially if you're someone who's like, because I love character actors, but if you're someone who doesn't work for well, I've had actors and actresses say, you know what, we really don't have anything to promote, and they feel like the career's nowhere. And I say, all right, can I hit you back? I had one actor, Chris Bauer. He's great. If you saw the movie of the TV show, The Deuce with James Franco, he was in that. He was in The Wire. He's in a new movie coming about wrestlers. And I sent him a message. He goes, yeah, I'll do it. And then he emailed me. He goes, you know what? He goes, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry with this. I'm just not good at this kind of stuff. I hope you understand. I hope you're not mad. But I sent him a message back. I said, listen, Chris, I don't want you to come on the show if you don't feel like you're going to do a good job, because it's not worth it to me or you. Then he goes, you know what? I'll do it. And he was an amazing guest. And I'm like, dude, you got to do these more often, because he was just so good. And he's had such a great career. And so that's the cool stuff. That's what keeps you around. It's like the guests, I always say, you know what? And of course, we don't know what's going on in their life. I've learned that. That people get busy. I mean, I had to cancel a show my first 10 years ago because I was in the hospital. So I couldn't do it from there.
That's because the thing is, like you just said, there's a couple people that I know personally that kind of started to climb up the ladder a little bit and get a little something going, right? I don't want to get any more specific than that, but they climbed up the ladder, and they were very polite, but they blew me off. Meanwhile, people further up the ladder than them were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I sit there. I had someone was like giving me a hard time. It was a comic, and he's like, well, how many listeners you got? And I was like, I don't need this shit. Now I look back, I'm like, you're still doing the same fucking gigs, and I'm interviewing Rock and Roll Hall. I'm interviewing Little Steven. So it's like, it's like, well, and it's funny. Adam McKay was going to do my show, and Adam said he sent me a message back on Facebook a few years ago, and he said, listen, I'm only going to do it because you were so nice to me when we were doing comedy, and you used to look out for me. And a friend of mine does video assist on sets, and he worked on a TV show with Adam. And I said, go tell McKay I said hi. And he's like, and in Hollywood, everyone knows everybody, but they don't. And he goes, I'm not going to look an idiot. I said, no. So he goes up to McKay. He goes, hey, my friend Steve Cooper's. Oh my God, I used to go to shows with Cooper and his Fiero. But then something came up with Adam, and I haven't been get in touch with him since then. I understand, because he's also like producing everything in Hollywood, and that's, but he was cool about it. And that's what's cool. That's when you get the people who are like, or when I watch TV and I'll send someone a message and I'll go, hey, I like your work. Here's been on my show. And because I've become friends on Facebook with a lot of these people because because I've had so many actors, we have mutual friends, so they accept your friendship. And a lot of them are just like, oh yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to do it. And it's like, as you said, it's the smaller ones who are like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, well, you know what? I don't want you anyway. You look back and you go, thank God, that person doesn't deserve to be on my show.
I still remember asking someone, and the guy goes, yeah, how many downloads do you get? And I started laughing. You know what I mean? I was like, I started laughing at him. I was like, really?
Let me tell you something about downloads. Downloads, I have never downloaded a podcast in my life. I sit there, I push everybody to my site, coopertalk.net. That's where, because I like that, because if you go on to, I'm on Amazon Music, I'm on iHeart, I'm all that shit. If you go on that, you can't see who the person is. So if you go to my website, I write coopertalk.net. Now, I write a bio and I have their picture. And, and you sit there and you think, oh, I'm not getting downloads. Well, for some reason, I think we're both on Podbean on one format. I think then you're on Anchor on another. Well, Podbean sends your stuff to YouTube. Well, I never get views. I get maybe like 2 views because I didn't even know what was going on there. Well, then I interviewed Huey Lewis in the News, the guitarist. And all of a sudden, I'm getting these notifications on YouTube. And I have 1,000 views of it and a bunch of comments. But that doesn't show up in the download. Podbean used to sit there and give you how many hits you got. And that's how I listen. That's how people listen to podcasts. I don't download podcasts. I'll plop it on and I'll listen to it. So the numbers are so skewed. And that's when people say that. Luckily, I'm on indie100.com and NWZC.com out of Seattle, and a station out of Canada, out of Montreal. So I get listens on there, but they don't go on my downloads,
Nope.
And so that's the thing. It's funny. I was on this one thing called the 405 Media. I guess it's like this right-wing conservative station. But the guy said everyone likes my show because I don't talk about politics. I talk about actors. But when I started playing on there, all of a sudden I got like all these crazy right-wing people like following me on Twitter. And I was like, what? And I figured out, it's on this show. It's on this station.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is you don't know who's listening. Because like we're all like, especially people like you and me who've been around since 1903, right, on the podcasting tip. Like you said, Amazon Music. There was some stuff I was on. I remember somebody sent me some stuff. You should try to get on Amazon. And I was like, yeah, I should try to get on Amazon. I was already on the damn thing.
I'm on Audible. I'm on sites like. I was looking for something. I Googled Alan Ruck Cooper Talk because I wanted to get a picture. And Alan Ruck he played Cameron on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I found out there's some websites like the top 10 interviews with Alan Ruck. And I'm like, what? And I'm on that. And then there's like these weird websites, like these like podshoot.us or something. And you're like, I don't know how people get on it. I don't care. I mean, it's not like we're making a lot of money off this shit because we aren't, because everyone's just like comedy. People will, instead of getting a sponsor, sponsors will sit there and give some kid energy drinks and I'll go, okay, I got a sponsor. I got an energy drink sponsor. What do they pay you? A can of energy drink. No, I mean, that's not a sponsor.
They probably drank out of it first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, kid, finish this. But isn't that the weirdest thing when you look up yourself to see what the situation is? And you like you just said, you're like, what the hell is this that I'm on? Because if you look at your analytics, it'll say other. Because even the pod player, I'm going, who? And they're like, oh, where are all these listens come?
Yeah.
And it's other, and you're like, what the hell is other?
Yeah, and it's so weird. I don't even pay. I don't even check my numbers. I know what I get.
I don't pay attention at all.
The one indie100.com, I think I get 9,000 listens an episode, and then that's more than most people. And then I get whatever I get, and so that's what I do now when I send a query letter. I say I'm on these stations, and if they want numbers, I tell them I get honestly between all different medians, I probably get 12 to 15,000 listens an episode, some less, and then I tell them and also select. I always say select episodes go to the Hamilton Gazette, which is always cool because that also gives you a different angle when you're trying to get, especially musicians, a lot of them like, oh, is it tour support? Well, I know every act that's going to be coming into Atlantic City, I'm going to hit their PR people up a month before and say, hey, I can get you press, before the show, and then I'll try to get free tickets because, you always have to try to do that.
Yeah. And then people send you books and
I don't even read them. I have like so many books. I feel bad. I tell them not to send me the book. I get, because of music, I get a lot of not CDs. I get a lot of links to stuff, but then I'm like, I have Amazon Music Unlimited. I already have it. I tell them to save it. I don't, and I'll be honest, Larry King, so he said he never read the book before they came out because he wanted to be fresh. And I agree with that. Just like music, a lot of the acts I get are 80s music, or classic rock. Well, no one really cares about the new music now. I don't want to listen to it. I want to talk about the old stuff, man. That's why you're on my show.
Yeah, I got this album called No One Cares. Let's talk about you.
It's like when
I want to hear about the one you won the Grammy.
Dennis DeYoung from Styx was like, yeah. I go, are you going to play the new song off your new album at the concert? He goes, no. He goes, I might play one song. He goes, if I went in and started playing my whole new album, people would go, what the hell is this shit? And they'd leave. And I'd never get booked again. And that's the guy who was in Styx, has written top 10 songs. But he said it. He said, people don't want to hear my new stuff. They want to hear Come Sail Away and Mr. Roboto and all that shit. And he goes, I've done them. And he goes, it irritates me when artists go, oh, I can't play that song anymore. He's like, well, that's part of someone's life. That's why they're coming to see you. That's why they're called fans. You play it and you shut up.
Yeah, that's a thing. I always crack me up, and that, which is a weird thing for comics because, unless you're Rodney Dangerfield, who obviously was a prolific writer, they still want to hear new stuff.
Because it's a joke. It's a different, it's like, unless you're Dice with like the nursery rhymes, but that became that became a world of its own. Dice, his whole thing, he was like a rock star. He was past the comic level. He was a rock star.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because if I went back to Fierro Boy, Earring Man Fierro Boy, 416 years ago, and I said, Coop, you're going to be a talk show host. You know that, right? You're going to be a talk show host. And you're going to do it for a long time. What would that guy say? That's what I'm curious about.
Back then, honestly, I just wanted to be a comic. I just wanted to be a comic because I loved comedy. And, it wasn't even a concept of interviewing people. And, you learn as you get in your age, I don't need to be the center of attention, man. That's what my tagline is. I'm only as hip as my guests. Because then it's all off me. It's on them. They better be cool. And I like it. I enjoy hearing stories. And you probably think the same way. When someone says, oh, man, that's a great question. I love that. I'm I'm doing something right, man. I'm doing something right. And by the way, this is a great question. But no, I sit there and it's like, I would never. And the thing also is, I'll be honest, Steve, I would have never thought I'd be interviewing the people I did. I interviewed Sandra Santiago from Miami Vice. I love Miami Vice. I was like, I was like, oh my God. I love the band, The English Beat. I could have get Dave Wakeling's the nicest guy. We talked for an hour and a half. And, that kid with the long hair would have never would never said he'd become friends with Rich Scheidner. I would never have thought that. Shides did my show. He did your show too. And Shides is amazing. But after he did my show, he did it another time. He came to my Super Bowl party in LA. I just threw it down to Pennsville and had lunch with him. And I would have never thought that. And that's the thing. Looking back, we thought we were comics. We thought maybe we'd be stars, and we all wanted to be a star. But I never, in my wildest dreams, would think I'd done 865 interviews that I posted and interview the people. I never would have thought it. And that's so cool when I look back. And that humbles me that people will sit there and take the time, and like actors will recommend another actor to me. And then all of a sudden I'll get a message from an actor that's on TV. Joanne is always like, oh my God, Eric Palladino or such as Patrick Fabian's on TV. And it's just, yeah. And I would have never thought that if someone said to me back then, you'll be bald, your eye will get lazier, and you'll be interviewing celebrities. I would have said, nah, man, I'm going to have a full head of hair, straight eyes, and I'll be doing the Chuckle Hut in Sheboygan.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If I went back in time and asked me, I would have said, well, he's going to go bald. His eye's going to get lazier. But I don't know about the talk show thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. You're like, we know.
But that's a weird thing. And what you're saying, it really kind of struck me too, because I remember talking to somebody. I was in my 40s at the time. Good Lord. I just realized I just referenced the 40. I was in my 40s and that was 10 years ago. I was in my 40s at the time. And I remember, no, it was actually earlier than that. It was earlier than that. Sorry. I've referenced it again in my 40s. I remember seeing somebody, and you might have felt the same way when you would see acts in Vegas and you go, man, I'm too cool for that. And go hang out in Las Vegas. What is this bull? And then I found out how much money some of these people are getting for residencies.
Oh yeah, dude.
In Las Vegas. Good God, man.
Oh yeah. I saw a thing on Netflix about Boys to Men and how, they did a residency in Vegas. They're like, we're not going to do Vegas. And they're like, well, you know what? Because they were on the downswing from their career after being the biggest thing around. And they did it and they're like, it's great. And you're right. You do your show. A lot of times you do a show and people are all there to see you and they pay extra money to get that VIP experience and you're rolling hand over fist and you're like, why not, man? You sit there, you do one show a night and you make bank and you do 5 shows, 5 shows a week and you're making more money in that week than you're probably making a month doing stand up back in the day, even at the top of your game. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's all, you get older and you go, you know what? It's in your blood, and it doesn't make a difference. As long as people appreciate you, as long as people enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't make a difference where you do it. I've talked to actors who are like, you know what, I wouldn't care if I was homeless, if I got an occasional acting gig, because that's what's in my soul.
The thing that got to me was, I don't know how accurate this was, but there was a comic I had forgotten about. And I YouTube, I'm just watching some stuff on YouTube. I'm eating a sandwich. So let me watch some YouTube before I go knock this sandwich down and go about business. And I don't know how I got into this jag of watching this comic, and this person kept popping up again and again. And I was like, you know what? I haven't heard from this cat in a while. Okay, I'm going to say Carrot Top. And I was watching some of those old Carrot Top videos. I'm like, okay, it's like the national version of WID. Okay. And then I was looking at what they said he made a year in Las Vegas. And I'm going, $13 million?
Yeah, and he lives in like the penthouse of one of the casinos for free.
And I'm saying, no, ask yourself a question. What do you think would happen if you said to Joanne, listen, Cooper Talk is even blown up bigger than it is already. They want me to do my show live from Las Vegas for $13 million a year.
Oh, no. I go there during the week. Come back on the weekends.
It's just the most amazing thing in the world, that because people are so focused on billionaires. That's the new benchmark. So everybody looks at those people, but you don't realize there are people that are not household names, but have a cult following, and they can literally sit back and clock down $4 to $10 million a year every year, like clockwork. Just boom, 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 boom.
How much do you need, man? It's like, seriously, as you get older, you notice that too. How much you need? We don't have kids. Neither me or Joanne have kids. So I don't have kids to leave money to. So it's like, how much do I need? And that's what people do. And if you're doing it, does it make a difference? I mean, I remember when we were doing weekends at the Comedy Factory Alley, getting 50 a set. You're making $150 on a weekend, and that was the best thing ever. You didn't care. You didn't care what you were, as long as your bills were covered. And that's, of course, it's different when you get older, but that's the way it was.
And just remember, adjusted for inflation, young audience.
Oh yeah.
In today's money, that's $9,314,000.
Yeah, exactly. It was nothing back then. It's nothing now.
No, but the thing was, remember, I like I said, I was a kid. People were working at McDonald's for $75. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
I can get that at the fun house and talk for 20 minutes.
exactly. And go next door to get pierogies.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you a couple more things before I let you go. Okay. Now I'm curious because you got just to get started in radio, moving on to podcasting. I want to hear about that. I mean, how did you even slide into the radio, and then how did the radio turn into
Well,
podcasting?
it was internet radio, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a business job. I was an event planner, marketing guy for a microbrew in Burbank. And I met a guy who ran at Indy100.com at a Chamber of Commerce event, and everyone's like, "Coop would be great. He used to do comedy. He'd be a great host." So that's when I said to the guy, "Oh, let's check it out." He goes, "All right." And I went in, and I just had to play half music and half guests. And I started getting guests. I had Tompkins in the beginning, Chris Mancini, John Matta. I even had Mark Maron in the beginning. I know I had Blaine Capash, and then I just we started getting listeners, and then the station closed. It just they weren't making money, and so I said, well, I want to keep doing this. I like this. So I bought a Zoom HN4 microphone and would do them over Skype. And I had Podbean, so I just put it on my website. And then it just went from there. And when I moved back east, I just kept doing it. And as you said, there's so many mediums, Amazon, all that stuff. You're on all that stuff. And then I said, I had some internet. So I sent out Indy 100 started going again, but as remote, they don't have a studio, so that I could send them my files. I just started doing that, and it grew. And as I said, it's I have a great hobby, man. I'm bummed, before the pandemic, I would get awesome concert tickets and backstage passes, and I would take friends of mine, because you would know this as much as I do. We've been around celebrities, so it doesn't impress us. But for a lot of people, they never have. So I remember I went to see Gary Kemp, who's in Spandau Ballet. He wrote the song "True." Well, he was also the guitarist for Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. His thing. So Gary was at the Met, and I interviewed him the week before, and I said, "If you're ever in Philly, I want to come meet you." And he goes, "I'll send my assistant a message. I got you covered next week." Well, a guy I've known since first grade loves Pink Floyd. Mark Esposito, I've known him since first grade. And I said, "Hey, dude, you want to go see Nick Mason?" He goes, "Yeah." "Oh, yeah." I said, "All right." So we go, he goes, "Where are we sitting?" I said, "I don't know." He goes, "What do you mean, I don't know?" I said, "I got to get the tickets." So we get the tickets, and they give you that backstage pass, this thing. "What's this?" I just put it on your shirt and shut up. And after the show, we go and we're waiting. There's 6 of us go up the elevator and meet Gary, but we're meeting Nick Mason. And Nick Mason's there with a glass of wine. And my buddy's like, "Holy shit, it's Nick Mason." And I said, "Get a picture with him. Just ask him." So it's, that's one of the perks. And I get friends of mine who aren't used to it. They love it. And it's cool, and it's how it all happened.
I, I just get a kick out of this whole thing because it's just one of those things where I just remember the conference, like you referenced early on, Nick's, when we would go to Nick's after the show.
Yeah.
And I just sit there. There's 2 things I think about those conversations, especially when there was a lot of us there. One, how funny would those conversations be if we had a microphone recording those damn things?
Oh God, yeah, because no one cared. Well, it's funny, I was watching that where I heard of the Boys to Men. I watched a documentary called "This Is Pop" on Netflix, and they had one video where they're walking through Philly, and it was a shot of a Dickens Inn that used to be down near South Street. And I used to go drink beers there with Adam McKay and a guy named Bill Ron, who was an accountant who wanted to do comedy. And I was just like, wow, that place closed. But yeah, there used to be the after show where we go with the late Jimmy Little to that cheesesteak place, Rocky's or whatever. And I remember I saw there was like these 2 bachelorette parties fighting, and they all had like big hair and spandex pants. And Jimmy was eating his cheesesteak in glory, watching it like, this is great. Okay, guys, come over here. Don't order. But yeah, it was a different time, and we would just hang out, or we go to South Street Diner, and it was great, and it was because it was, it was all different cultures colliding. There's me, a preppy kid from South Jersey, you from a rough neighborhood of Philly, Big Nick, 400-pound man who sells hubcaps, Fred Novak, literally insane, Chuck Carmen, a biker, Doherty, John Dock, a lawyer, and we would just hang out. We would shoot the shit, and it was fun, and no one got offended, and even Pernell Tucker would show up, and Yeah, and so it was a different time, but it was great. I mean, yeah, you're right. If we had taped that shit, it was gold. And you know, we just because
Well,
we're just having fun. We're all doing what we loved, and there was nothing. It didn't make a difference if you know, like if we weren't making money. You know, if we had gone on that stage that night and you had a
mm,
good set, that's what counted.
what was hilarious? I know what I'm thinking when I think back on it. First, I did a routine on my other podcast about us going into the diner because I was walking ahead of everybody, and I looked at the waitress, and she saw me, Chuck, Big Nick, you, and we had a bunch of dudes, and the look of horror on this woman's face.
And the funny thing, all of us were very polite and mannered, except Novak after a few martinis.
And the funny thing was, like, we and that's the thing. It's like they were looking at us like, oh, they thought, they remember that movie, The History of Violence? You ever seen that?
Yeah,
They were probably expecting that.
yeah.
So they probably thought we were going to kill him and eat him. And, right. But like you said, we came in, we're just a bunch of nice guys. I mean, I don't think they were afraid of me and you, let's be honest.
Right.
But,
Big Nick, they thought Big Nick might eat them. He might.
when they saw Chuck, Nick, and Fred, they were like, we're dead. And, right. But the thing was, as they would come to know over time, one, they weren't that busy when we would show up. Two, we ate and we tipped well. And
Right.
three, we were nice dudes. But it was just really funny. But here's the thing I was getting to. There's one of two things would have happened had we recorded those conversations and they got out to the public. One, people would have thought they were as hilarious as we did. Or two, we would all have our careers destroyed.
Oh yeah, we'd
because
all be
back
canceled.
then,
we all be canceled. That was the thing. And that's what I always crack up. There was no boundaries, you know. But we were friends with each other. There was no mean intent. You know, I mean, Pernell Tucker used to call me a clam chowder eating, Docker wearing motherfucker. And yeah, so it was a different time. But you know, it's something that, you know, when you look back at it, you know, we are lucky enough to say that, you know, a lot of people didn't get to experience that. You know, I know people who, you know, when I was in LA interviewing people, or even now when I interview people, I know people who are millionaires who would trade their high pressure jobs, whatever, to have a hobby like interviewing celebrities. Like, you know, I do business. I have a business development job, and people are like, they're all like, "Oh my God, I heard you this pipe. Oh my God, you talked to this person." And that's the thing. We had that part of us, and we're a small percentage, whether it be comics or musicians or actors, who actually know what it was like to have that community where everyone was behind, you know, each other, and it was just fun. And you know, we were blessed for that. And you know, I mean, it's a matter of, so many people never know what it's like to sit there and hang out with someone in a diner and just bullshit about nothing when there's 60. Yeah, it's like in Broadway Danny Rose when they're all hanging out and they're talking, you know, and it's just, that's the way it was, and it still goes on to this day.
I still remember being on stage with y'all in the back of the room. I was doing a set and everybody was going, and I couldn't. You were trying to signal to me whether you were going to Nick's or the diner, and I forgot how it was, but it was like it was like left hand Nick's, right hand McDonald's, right? And I just I just kind of motioned with my right hand and rubbed my head, and everybody knew that's when I knew that's where we were going. You were going to the South Street Diner. So I'm on stage, and I'm on stage doing my act, and I'm thinking, let's get this shit over with so I can get to the diner.
Exactly, because it was the time, man. It was fun.
You know, that was some good stuff. Man, we have come to the end of today's episode, my brother. I'm glad to have you on, Grandpa.
It was great to be on here, Steve. It's always good to talk to you. You know, we do have to get together because we're right across the bridge, and I don't know if we're gonna go to a close down again, but before you know, we have to hook up because I love taking the speed line. I love going to Philly. You know, I love Philly, and it's something that, you know, I don't get in there enough. And because of this, as I said, that we've been shut down for so long until we reopen, I've only been to Philly. Like, I think I was at the Christmas Village, and that's just tradition because me and Joanne went there after we got engaged. And yeah, I miss Philly. Philly's a great time.
And we definitely got to go to, because it's like we spent a lot of our formative years we're both adults at that time, but young adults, formative young adult years in Center City. You know, just milling around down there. Well, actually, you can't go down to Second and Third because it's all condos and bullshit down there. But you know, it'd be kind of cool to go down there and you know, just because I just was I just went down there to hang out with some relatives. We went to eat at the Red Owl Tavern, I think it's called, something like that, and it was kind of cool. So I guess we should probably do something like that. That way we can
you need
get
a good Reading terminal, man. There's so much shit going on. There's so many places over there.
Oh, you haven't been there in a million years. I gotta, you got to do that.
You can even call Brett Harrison.
You know what? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brett. Yeah. I like Brett. That'd be kind of cool.
You know, it's like, I was going to go down there. For a comic I know from New York, Jimmy Delavallo was in town a while back, and I met up with him, and Jimmy Schubert was in town, and Jimmy's going to go, but he's like, I had a late show last night, Cooper. I can't get out. I'm Jimmy Schubert. I can't get out, Cooper. And but yeah, it's always good. You meet up with people in Philly, and you just find a shitty little. Or we go to the Nick's Roast Beef down on right near Comedy Factory Outlet, or the one down on South Street, like the good old days.
That would be, man. Just imagine, is the South Street Diner still there?
I don't even know, dude. South Street's completely different. Everything closed.
I haven't been down there in 415 years. But it would be kind of hilarious if Nick's Roast Beef or Nick's or something similar to Nick's was in the same place. That would be fun.
It is. I heard it is.
Oh, that's it.
All right, we'll set this up, bro.
That's the move. Coop, much appreciated. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link your website is basically the one-stop shop for everything you want people to know about, correct?
Talk.net. Twitter's at Cooper Talk.
Okay, I'll put them both into the notes.
All right, man.
All right, my brother. Thank you for coming on, my brother. I appreciate it. Good talking to you again.
Night, Steven. Thanks.
I'll take care, my brother. Right, yeah, take care. All right, now that was fun, wasn't it? Told you. What did I tell you? Have I failed you yet? No. Will I fail you? Also no. Thanks again for all your support. Much love to everybody, and I'll see you again next time. Take care.